there's that myth that if you build it, they will come. If you have a great product, people will hunt you down. That is the biggest lie in business ever. There are brilliant products that go out of business every day.
So that was a recent clip from an interview I did with Kirsty, the CMO and co-founder of Parlorgames, a skincare brand that helps to alleviate the pains that many women go through as they enter or are already in the stages of menopause. I've had the absolute pleasure of working alongside her, and from the get-go, it was immediately apparent to me not just how compassionate and mission-driven she is as a co-founder, but also just how much experience and wisdom she's managed to accrue over her experience as a marketer and serial entrepreneur. I've had the pleasure of trying to pick her brains this session. We discussed as many and as broader topics as time would allow, including how Parlorgames actually came about, the various things that they had to do to circumvent the stringent policies on various ad platforms, how experiences in other businesses like direct mail, broadcasting, faxing, and many more helped her in the long run, what she believes it really takes to survive as a founder in e-commerce these days, and many, many more as well. I really learned so much from this interview, and I really hope that you too, whoever's watching this, enjoy this as much as I did. Hello there, Kirsty. I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Thanks so much for hopping on. I think it's been a long time coming for me personally, and definitely been wanting to pick your brains about how you've managed to take Parlorgames to this meteoric point. I think what you're serving, anywhere between 6,000 to 7,000 customers on a monthly basis at this point, right? So
Yeah.
really, really cool growth. And first question I'd love to ask you is the origin story. So how did Parlorgames start? I know a lot of founders, it's some sort of bolt of inspiration. I know some founders, want to scratch their own itch. I know Kate, your co-founder, was involved in some of this. So yeah, just walk me through how that all got going.
Yeah, so it's funny because I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since 2021. So I've had quite a few businesses, and also I happened to the idea I'd had prior to this that I had been testing out did not pan out in the way I'd hoped. I mean, it was a great idea. I still think it's a great idea, but but
Right.
the market wasn't ready for it. So I was kind of looking around anyway, and Kate and I had been friends forever, 25, 26 years now, something like that. And and she has a background in hormone balancing, hormone testing, in managing those kinds of companies. And
Right.
and when I went through menopause, I had some issues, which ordinarily I'd be a little bit embarrassed to say, but right now my
Right.
face is all over the freaking interwebs with my Facebook ads telling
Yes.
everybody in the world that
Exactly.
yes, I had vaginal atrophy and dryness. So yes, I had that, and
Amazing.
my doctor kind of shrugged and was like, well, I don't really have good solutions for you. And so my second plea was to Kate for help. How do I solve this
Right.
problem? And she got me set up with some estriol, which is one of the three types of estrogen. And lo and behold, within like 2 weeks, uh, I was feeling incredibly better, and within 30 days was completely healed and had no more
Wow.
issues. And I
Incredible.
was like, holy smokes, like this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And Kate and I talked a little bit about it, and she says, I do have some cream formulas, and that I've been working with practitioners. What do you think about taking this direct to consumers? And she said, I don't. She said, I have no experience with going directly to
Hmm.
women. And I said, oh, lucky you! I have lots of experience with that.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Incredible.
that's really how it was born. It was out of my own personal need. It was out of
Hmm.
Kate's desire to do more with women's health. She's a
Right.
passionate educator, and
Yeah.
and there's a huge gap in women's health in the U.S.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you
Period.
see a lot of
Yeah.
consumers or marketers targeting that sort of younger demographic, right, between 20 to 35 perhaps, but you never really see that much, or doesn't seem to be that many people serving that market. It's definitely
No.
something really underserved for sure.
Yes. Well, and especially hormone balancing. I don't know. My impression, and this is validated by some other research I've seen, is that, you know, only 20% of physicians in the US have any training at all in women's health post-menopause, hormonal health specifically,
Yeah.
menopausal symptoms. And a lot of these menopausal symptoms don't go away once all the hormones have dropped and you've reached a new balance of nothing. They don't go
Right.
away. A lot of them just get gradually worse over time. And so, there was just this big gap in the market in terms of education, community, and products that can really work for people. And
Right.
that was right up both of our alleys. So,
Amazing. So what was the process in terms of actually then like getting that to market? Did you go out and talk to some people first, or did you just have such strong conviction that you could just see visually, the writing was all over the wall for you and you thought, okay, screw it, we're just going to test it straight away, run some ads. What was the process in
yeah.
that initial first customers?
It's interesting. I talked a little bit with a couple other women that I knew just enough to find out that, oh, yeah, this is fairly common. But Kate already had a lot of experience in this realm, so she knew how common it was. She knew the data that,
Right.
70% of women eventually have symptoms of vaginal atrophy. They might not have it right away, but they do
Right.
eventually, and
I see.
and uh, and so she knew that data, and so she was very convinced that if we could find the right messaging, and the right targeting, that this would be a really receptive audience. And so, um, because of some, vast experiences starting businesses the wrong way, um,
Right.
the way we approached this is we did market testing. And I'm a digital marketer, I've been actually online since 2004, I think. First Google ads in
Amazing. Yeah.
2004.
That's
Back
quite
when
some
it was
career. Yeah.
pennies a click. Anyway,
Yeah. Good
uh,
times.
the good old days. But what I had been really learning recently is just some incredible mechanisms for doing rapid testing, particularly useful for market testing. I mean, shout out to Mint
Yeah.
CRO that has really got testing dialed in the online marketing space.
Yeah.
And so basically what we did is I did a bunch of testing to see if I could identify the pain points that women were having, the most important pain points, what kind of benefits they were looking for, whether they would respond to ads on social media, whether
Right.
I could convert them just to a lead for starters, just to kind of measure, um, to basically just measure interest. And the I couldn't put up a bad ad, as it turns out. Like people were
Amazing. Wow.
so eager and so responsive,
Wow.
and so hungry for the kinds of information and solutions that we were talking about. And so with just a $200 or $300 spent, we had our market
Yeah.
test, and that gave us
Amazing.
the confidence to go into a small batch run test of our products. Those
Yeah.
that those tests went really well. We were able to test our call to action and our
Yeah.
offer,
Of course.
and those tested incredibly well. And so then we were ready to take the big dive and buy like a full batch of inventory.
Right. So that's amazing. Yeah. So you actually ended up testing the marketing first before then investing further into the products. It's almost like some sort of pre-sale, which I think, yeah, is in many respects quite wise now, especially you don't want
Mhm.
to, pump too much into, crazy amounts into a product only to find out it doesn't quite work, right? So yeah, I think that was really, really wise on your end. Was there, anything on your guys' part when you were launching or when you were developing this that you felt was a little bit odd in the way that you tested things or launched things? Obviously, not everyone tests the market first before investing in the products. What else was there that you felt was a little bit unconventional for
Mm.
parlor games?
Well, I think aside from testing first, which I have some very strong opinions about, the other thing that we decided to do was very different from the kind of women's health industry was to use humor. Um,
Right.
to me, I mean, both Kate and I have good senses of humor and love to joke around, and
Definitely
so it's
noticed.
part of
Yeah.
who we are as people. But
Yeah.
also, I think the thing to me is that while menopause and especially painful menopause symptoms are very serious business, I think life's always better when you're having fun with it, right? And,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we were also sort of pushed that way because Facebook at the time would not let us say
Yeah.
vagina, wouldn't let us say
Yeah.
vaginal atrophy,
Of
wouldn't
course.
let us say sex, which is one of the things that hurts
Yeah.
when this happens. And so already we were kind of forced into euphemisms, which lends itself well to kind of humor anyway.
Ah,
And
lovely.
and so we really leaned into that. Now that did turn off some women. Some women thought
Right.
that well, we got a lot of accusations. Why can't you just say vagina? And it's like, hey, we'd love
Yeah.
to.
We
Now
tried.
we have options here. You
Yeah,
can
you can't
say it
win
in the
every time.
comments on our ad, but we can't say it in our ad, which
Yeah.
people don't understand because, they post it
Right.
on Facebook themselves maybe, but anyway, so
Mm.
there were some people who are like, you're belittling the seriousness of women's issues by not using proper clinical
If
terms.
only
It's
they
like,
use.
doing our best. But
Yeah.
also, we kind of got a kick out of the words hoo-ha and lady bits. And lady bits is a legit phrase in Britain, and Kate is British.
Precisely. Yep,
So,
absolutely. So if the Oxford Dictionary says so and decrees it, then yeah, what
heck
could the
yeah.
comment section say against it? Yeah,
Totally.
incredible. So yeah, obviously one thing I definitely noticed when taking a look at some of the ads that you're doing, get a lot of comments, and one thing I definitely noticed as well is your community as well. Obviously, you have a really strong, positive community. I think a lot of e-commerce founders, especially because it's trending now and it always has been, try and get in on this sort of building a community. So one of those things that everyone tries to do, but it's not always that easy. You walk into a lot of these communities and they're just kind of dead. It's only the founder or only the admins posting. Nobody replies, nobody
Right,
says anything, nobody does anything. But
right.
with you guys, it's a completely different story. How on earth did you manage to create an actual community where people share tips, comment on each other's stuff, give back? How did you actually manage to do that?
Well, I wish I could say it was because of our innate brilliance, but honestly, I think it had a lot more to do with just the need in the community. I mean, I had heard all along that you kind of need to break 100 people in the community before it starts having some life of its own. And so, it's always uncomfortable for that first person who shows up and the first 10, the first
Right.
30. It's like, oh wow, there's not much happening here. And so, we did have posts, we did solicit questions, we commented on everything that people said at first. We posted our blogs and whatnot in there. But I have to say that even by the time there was like 30 people in there started to be some organic conversation. And what we
Right.
learned really quickly and kind of shockingly was how many women said, I've never talked about this to anyone. And they were
Wow.
starved for some place to ask their questions without judgment,
Yeah.
and to be able to get some answers without where there's a little bit of anonymity. Yeah, we have their name. Yeah, we can see whatever image they've got for their
Right.
profile picture, but they don't really know us. We don't really know them. We're not going to run
Yeah.
into their friends and embarrass them in public, right? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the safety in that group, which we've been very careful to nurture and have had to have conversations with women who've not quite honored that. Um,
Right. Of
Although
course.
I think we've only kicked out one person, honestly.
Really? Wow. That's
Yeah, and
incredible.
I was trying to remember how many women we have. I think we're over 9,000. Give me a second to check really quick
Yeah,
because
no worries.
I would
Absolutely.
actually like to give you an accurate number.
Yeah.
You can edit this bit out while I
Yeah,
talk.
that's fine. Yeah, that's honestly, yeah, that's a such an incredible number to maintain
Yeah.
that sort of close knit community at such a high number. And the fact that you haven't even had to moderate it, there are people who have to then come in and constantly monitor, moderate the posts, review them before they get pushed out. I mean, I'm sure
Mm.
you guys probably do some of that as well, but it's quite a lot of work, and for you guys, it
Yes.
almost seems borderline, effortless. I guess that somewhat speaks to that sort of, again, back to that need for the target market that you've just really
Yeah.
been able to fulfill so well for your end consumers. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, we have definitely. So our Sexy Sassy Sisterhood community, which is a private group for
That
our
was it. Yeah,
customers, is just about to hit 7,500 women. So we are
amazing.
really excited about that. And yeah, it is. it still is a lot of work, even though we're not generating conversation and interactions anymore, like far from
Yeah.
it. Our bigger dilemma is someone posts and there's 100 comments on it before any of us get out of bed. And
Right.
and so our bigger challenge is to make sure that women are actually getting scientifically accurate answers, because there's a lot of women who've tried a variety of
I can
things
imagine.
and have a lot of things to throw out there, but we know some of the problems of some of the answers they're saying. We know, a
Right.
lot about the science. And so that's actually the biggest dilemma right now that we're working to solve, is how do we have more eyes on it? Because we're a very
Right.
small team still. We only have 5 full-time people, including me and Kate.
Yeah.
And then we've got
No,
a
the
small handful of contractors, one
yeah.
of them your video team, who we are
Yeah. Absolutely.
delighted by. And but so that is the question: do we, how do we best keep our eyes more thoroughly on what's going on there, maintain the scientific integrity,
Of
um,
course.
and and um, and yet still allow for that just super organic back and forth women have. We don't want to be in there
Yeah.
dominating the conversation, but we also don't want to stand for some faulty science.
Yeah, it's a tough balance, and it almost makes you kind of understand almost the position that even platforms like Facebook or Google or YouTube have, in the sense that you want free speech, you want people not to feel like they're being restricted by what they're saying, but at the same time, if they go out there and start spreading false information, you're like, oh, hang on a sec, let's take it back a few steps. So yeah, really interesting how you're kind
Right.
of, as especially as things scale, obviously I guess your meteoric growth is almost your worst enemy in that sense, and that you've got to
Yeah.
try and figure out how to sort that out. But I'm sure, yeah, you'll have
Yeah.
no trouble
It's a
doing
good
that.
problem
But
to have. Don't get me wrong.
absolutely, yeah, for sure, right? It's, you sit there complaining about it, but it comes with its perks, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, but I guess on that note, speaking of sort of potential little challenges, what were, obviously, like we've spoken about some of the things that have worked really amazingly well for you and Parlor Games. What was there anything that sticks out to you as something, a challenge upon the journey that you've managed to overcome? Anything that sticks out to you as having been particularly annoying or irritating to say? Like, obviously one that you're willing to disclose, of
Yeah,
course,
for
right?
sure. No, totally happy to talk about challenges, because I don't think there's any business that doesn't have challenges.
For
And
sure.
that said, we've been incredibly lucky. I mean, we've really, worked with a market that is hungry for what we have to offer. There was a gap in the market. It's filling. There's a lot more competitors now. But
Yeah.
we welcome it. It keeps that whole market space vibrant. It's actually kind of a bad sign if you're the only one in the space. That's not usually a
Exactly. Yeah,
good
it's kind of
indication
worrying,
that
right?
money can be made and a company can survive. So this is all good. Um, the struggles. So kind of comically, we launched right after the 2020 election here, which meant,
Right.
and and also amidst COVID and everybody, turning to
That's
online.
true.
So our tests had come in at, certain cost per acquisition of a customer, and
Right.
then by the time we actually launched with, Kate's house full of inventory, ad costs had already gone up. And so that was the
Right.
first challenge out of the gate, just in terms of cash flow.
Hmm.
But, I mean, crazily enough, our first month was our only uh, month that we uh, weren't in profit. So
Wow.
that's been astonishing, like unheard of. I can talk about that
Yeah,
more. But
especially yeah, post 2020, right? That is, it's definitely been, for all marketers out there who are listening to this, you'll definitely know the pains of that, that event that happened in 2021 or during COVID. That definitely was a bit of a hiccup, and we can
yeah,
dive deeper into that later on. But yeah,
yeah,
no,
for
that's
sure.
just that's incredible to hear, that you
Yeah,
managed to,
but
yeah,
also
just overcome
related to
that.
COVID, unfortunately, was,
Yeah,
and we are certainly not alone in dealing with this, but supply chain issues have been
of course,
nightmarish.
yes.
We launched with using one particular bottle that was working pretty well for us for
Yeah.
our creams, and early in 2021, we couldn't get those bottles anymore. And so
Right.
we tested it, we tried a different one. Well, that bottle, we had so many problems with people having pumps that wouldn't pump. And so
Oh, wow.
so then we had that issue. So then we tried a different bottle. And then that pump, unbeknownst to us, uh, our manufacturer had not let us know this when they swapped in this new pump, only pumped half the volume that the previous pump did. So in one pump, which was previously a
Oh,
full dose, they were only getting half a dose. And it took us a couple months to get enough feedback to realize, oh, something is truly wrong. This isn't just
yeah.
some women having slower healing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that I just happened to be visiting Kate at the time in Colorado because we live in different states. And when we got the news that these pumps that we were using only pumped half the necessary volume, oh, we had some choice. We had to go on a walk to stomp it out. We were just like
Whoa.
so upset.
Yeah.
And
I can
madly
imagine.
scrambled to get the word out to our women, change it to
Of
two pumps.
course.
But then it was an interesting dilemma of math skills, of
Right.
varying math skills in the community. Some people were like, if it's two pumps, then that means you only sold me half as
Yeah.
much. It's like, no, 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 no. And it was so
It's the
cute.
same,
Someone
but
had a group
yeah.
posted, listen, you can have two pizzas. One pizza's cut in eighths. The other
Yeah.
pizza's cut in quarters. On
Oh,
one
wow. You had
pizza,
to go to that level, right?
like they were drawing out the image. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you, that was brilliant, really
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
Because
Oh, wow.
it was interesting. No matter how we spelled it out, it caused confusion for somebody.
Right.
And so that's been a headache. And for unfortunately, we've had to stick with those bottles because at least they pump.
Right.
But we did have to adjust our formula to make sure the right dose was happening at the right time. With each two pumps, had to redo all our labeling. We had a
Yep.
sticky note on our flyer that said, make sure to use two pumps because all the women who previously had just been
Yep.
using one pump for a year, they might not even read this.
Yeah.
So that has been the biggest struggle. And a lot of
I
money
can
lost
imagine.
because bunches of labels printed that then couldn't be used,
Yeah.
replacing bottles. It's that part's uh, been our biggest headache. And I hesitate to say that, we've got this solved because,
Yeah.
all we have to do is lose this bottle and be on to bottle number 472 and,
Right.
move on.
Yeah.
Um,
No.
so that has been our biggest headache so far.
Yeah.
That and rising ad costs.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, on that note, I guess, obviously you've been, in the, as you mentioned, you've been in the advertising space for quite some time now. And obviously you've seen advertising undoubtedly probably go through, so many different changes,
Yeah.
without, I guess, going into like a full blown, because I can imagine you could probably talk about this for 2 hours. Like, what were the sort of the key differences you've seen from when you started all the way up to when to now, I suppose, 2022, where we are
Yeah.
now?
Well, it's funny because my marketing started in direct response mail, right? Sending postcards, sending
Oh,
letters,
wow.
sending whatever. And
Proper,
and
David Ogilvy
broadcast
style. Right.
faxing. Because my
Wow.
first company was B2B. I was selling to school districts. So we could fax the main office our sales message.
Amazing. Yeah.
So
That's
broadcast
amazing.
fax
Yeah, I can
all
imagine.
over a
That must have
dial-up
felt
modem.
revolutionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all over a dial-up modem where I'm
Yeah.
running Ethernet cord 50 feet, or I mean, sorry, not Ethernet at the time, a phone line, uh, you know, up to a
Yeah,
fax
absolutely.
machine stuck in a closet from downstairs. I mean, it
Gosh,
was
I,
hilarious.
I can't even fathom. Yeah.
Yeah,
Been overly blessed with digital marketing from the get-go for me. So I can't even imagine,
yeah,
having to do anything manually at all. Just
yeah,
although you never know, it might be coming back, right?
yeah.
To
Well,
get
and
back
we
to
also
physical stuff
did
again. Yeah.
had an entire business that launched using that really took off using voice broadcasts. Back when you could get an
Uh,
inbound call with a message and then you press one if you want to learn more, kind of thing, which did
oh,
exceedingly well
I
when
can
that was
imagine. Yeah.
still
'Cause
new.
that's quite
But
intimate, right? Yeah.
yeah,
I can see that working really well.
as people got more and more frustrated about unsolicited inbound phone calls.
Right.
I think that was still at the time where you paid for inbound, you paid for every call,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't like an unlimited
Yeah,
plan.
exactly.
And so then, our regulatory agencies cracked down on mobile numbers. So then we scrubbed all the more mobile numbers out. But that really, started that was not as effective. So, you know, moved on from that.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I was like, in that, oh, we also did magazine ads. We've done magazine ads.
No way.
Yeah, and so it wasn't really until, even though I did Google ads back in 2004 and I was doing Facebook ads, gosh,
Yeah.
2010 or 11, like a long time ago.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I didn't really double down on online marketing until 2015 or 16, somewhere in there, and that's when I really
Right.
moved pretty much exclusively, where because the targeting got so much better than it used to be, right?
Right.
Like when I was originally
I
putting in Facebook ads, it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, this
Wow, you
needs
can
to
do
go
this.
to people in Portland, and that was about the extent I could say, right?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
still, it must have been, how did you find that experience making that sort of transition? Obviously when it first got released, it must have been quite limited, and then over time you must have just seen it just grow from strength to strength, and of course, 2021
yeah,
obviously, but
I mean,
or did you find
the
that?
biggest challenge of switching, of all these changes has been just learning those platforms. But the
Right.
reality is, copywriting, calls to action, offers, this stuff hasn't changed since
I was gonna
people first
say,
started selling to each other. So, you
yeah,
know,
because
it's the
yeah,
art
because
of
at the end of the day,
persuasion, or to help
right.
people see,
Hmm.
that they have a problem that you can help solve. I know a lot of
Right.
people in terms of sales and marketing feel like used car salesmen, but the reality is, if you have something that can make a difference for someone's lives, like
Right.
you're by you being shy or withholding that information in any way is a disservice to those people who could have better lives because of what you have to offer. Now, I say that saying, have a good product that can make a difference for people's
Of
lives.
course. Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
sell crap.
Definitely.
But
Yeah. No snake oil.
yeah, but if you have something great, then it's really your job to, how do you communicate that? How do you help people see that what you have can make a difference? And how do you make it an offer that's really a win-win for you both, for your buyer and for you? Because obviously, you know, Kate and I aren't in this to get rich and sell our company someday. I mean, mind you,
Right.
I do have a retirement to fund, so there's some
Of course. Yeah.
financial reward I
Yeah.
definitely am looking for. But one of our biggest commitment was making sure that our products were affordable for women, because our
Right.
healthcare system in the U.S., contrary to the U.K. and other civilized places on
Of
the
course.
planet,
Yeah.
is a wreck. And
Right.
while a lot of male dysfunction stuff is covered, a lot of women's
Hmm.
postmenopausal issues are not well covered by insurance, providing, and for
Right.
many women, not covered at all. And so
Yeah.
for a lot of women, this may be their only option to help relieve their menopausal symptoms. And
Yeah.
so we work really hard to keep our pricing reasonable and affordable. Um, and that's, you can't quite say that for some of the new people in the space. They're really
I think
optimizing the
so.
high ticket spot,
Yeah.
which,
I've s-
that's a choice. You can do that. But
so yeah, I love that philosophy. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I mean, to me, a great business is one that is, putting off enough profit that the business can continue. Because there is a point where we had to raise our prices like 6 months in, 9 months in or something
right.
on our Silky Peach Cream, because it was becoming very clear that we wouldn't actually be able to stay in business at our original pricing
Of
model.
course.
Um,
Yeah.
but even so, for women who'd been buying from us, we grandmothered them in, since we're all women
Right.
here. Uh, we grandmothered them into the original pricing structure they came in on, because
Got it.
we just felt like that was the right thing to do. And
Yeah. It's always a
we
tricky
may
one,
have to
that.
do that again. Again, our
Hmm.
shipping costs are higher, our manufacturing costs are higher, the bottle, like everything is
Right.
getting more expensive. And so we may have to do that again, and once again, we will grandmother our people in. But But circling back around, marketing, the messaging hasn't changed. Good creatives still, I mean, while there's sort of trending imagery, there's things that change image wise that might have worked, you know, 20 years ago, maybe aren't
Yeah.
as resonant now. I would say, as far as marketing, that's perhaps changed more than anything. And the spread of things like TikTok, but even Instagram early on, like just the ability to rapidly create images and have them
Right.
change, and has made people hungry for variety, I think. And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the biggest challenges in marketing, is keeping up that hu- current human craving for variety and seeing something new. But
Right. Yeah.
honestly, the messaging, the marketing itself, the marketing messaging is still, I believe, the most important thing, and
I couldn't. Yeah.
the foundations of that have not changed
Yeah. I
in
couldn't agree more.
1,000 years,
Honestly.
right?
Yeah, because just looking at you and how you've changed, like you've gone from so many different platforms, from literally, direct mail all the way to broadcast, faxing, magazine ads, and I think to see you come out and say that, actually fundamentally, the fundamental messaging and the processes that, back these up have always been the same. I can imagine, even in maybe 2, 3 years time, we might not even have Facebook or
Yeah.
TikTok. Heck, we might be in the metaverse next, right? So, I think it's really
God
interesting to
forbid.
see that. Yeah, goodness gracious, then we'll really
Too
have to,
old for
get
this.
our, yeah,
I'm still
have to
like,
get our headsets
TikTok?
on and
Really? I have to get on TikTok?
yeah.
I'm like, my,
Oh
my
gosh,
excuse
yeah,
right now
the
is our
roads.
demographic isn't
Yeah.
adequately represented there yet, but it's coming.
Yeah,
Uh,
gosh, it is coming. Yeah, it's always scary, right? In that sort of marketing industry, right? That it's a blessing in the sense that you get to do new things, I suppose. But on the
mm,
flip side, if there's a new platform that comes out and you really, really do not like it, obviously I'm not going to name any names, right? But if those come out and you have to get on that, then it's a bit of a transition period, and yeah,
there
I
is
can
one
definitely
platform
feel
I'm
that.
refusing to
That's
use at this point, I will say.
yeah, yeah. We won't name those
uh,
names in case we want to
yeah, we
would
won't
get
name
shut down.
names,
But yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
it is interesting. And actually, we'll probably test direct mail maybe this next year,
Yeah,
because
I've
it
seen
can
that.
be very cost effective. But
It could be. Yeah.
it's funny because some people, what people don't realize, Dan Kennedy used to always say this, is people sort their mail over the trash can. So you just have a
Right.
split second to get their attention there too, just like Facebook,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or
Exactly.
TikTok. You have a
Yeah.
split second to capture someone's attention and have them realize that you might have something worth their time.
Right.
And we used to really specialize in postcard marketing, really ugly postcards. Weirdly, we could always beat beautiful postcards with ugly ones.
No way.
No,
So same
I've
with
seen
Facebook
that.
ads again. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
TikTok or
Well, yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
true. Our postcards look like something that might come from your kid's school, you know,
Wow.
often. And I think that's funny that you point that out, but Facebook's often like that too. The
Yeah.
not refined, the more organic looking.
Yeah.
I know from other of my colleagues that founder interviews have worked well for them on
Yep.
e-com even. Some of them which
Exactly.
are
Yeah.
quite boring. I mean, as I've told you, our first really winning ad was one I thought was just going to be sort of part of a nurture sequence to show to women who'd already been exposed to our product, but maybe
Right.
hadn't bought yet. And this it's really an interview I did of Kate, where she's talking about vaginal atrophy and trying to, kind of explaining the symptoms and what causes it and da, da, da,
Got
da.
it.
So kind of scientific-y lecture. There was no call to action. There was no pitch. I mean,
Yeah.
we were still trying to figure out how best to orchestrate some of our time together where we were filming, and it was just me filming her and interviewing her, and um,
Right.
and yet that ad ended up. I mean, we're still running it, and it's 13
It's
months later.
incredible. Yeah.
We're
I.
we're
Yeah.
we're still trying to beat the ad.
Of
I
course.
think we
Yeah.
have. I think we have
Yeah. We might
three
have.
that have beat the
Yeah.
ad so far, but
Could
still
be.
working on that. But it was
Of
interesting. I
course.
think that what worked about it is Kate was just Kate being real, and
Mm,
and
yeah.
saying the things that nobody's talking about. And thankfully, by the time we made that ad, Facebook was letting us say vaginal dryness or vaginal atrophy. So that
Amazing.
helped a lot because that allowed that ad to get through without euphemisms and other silliness. And yet there was still some lighthearted moments in that interview, but that one just has really resonated for women, and people share it. They share it like crazy.
Yeah.
It's
Gosh.
not often you can get ads shared. So,
Precisely, yeah, and I think that goes lends well back again to that sort of humor sort of style, right?
mhm.
It's always kind of risky doing sort of content that either educates or tries to make people laugh because I know some people, some direct marketers say, oh, you can't use humor, like humor never really converts, and if you get humor wrong and you try and make something funny when it's very clear that you're trying to sell, it can often really backfire, and you've always got to sort of maintain that fine balance. But clearly you guys have managed to do that really well, and just being real. I mean, funny that that's the name of a new platform right at the minute, and I think that's kind of definitely what people are gravitating towards these days. So yeah, super interesting
Yeah.
on that front. Awesome. So we've talked a lot about parlor games. It's great growth. The highs, some of the lows, some of the annoyances. And one thing I kind of wanted to dig into a little bit was sort of the stuff that you'd done previously, right? Obviously, you mentioned your sort of careers in direct mail and all that, and you've been a bit of a serial entrepreneur as
Yes.
well. Am I allowed to probe about some of those previous experiences that may not have worked as well, or some of the ones that even if they did work to some degree, or why you abandoned it? Did you feel like some of those past experiences helped you significantly when it came to building parlor games, and are there any that you can pick out in
Oh,
particular for you?
100%. I mean, you talk to any serial entrepreneur, and if they're telling the truth, they had many more failures than successes.
Right.
But, uh, but oh my gosh, you learn from those failures. My very first business was called Teacher's Toolbox, and we produced video training programs to help teachers work with children with special needs.
Right.
And that was also the business in which I was thrown into learning how to market because I was a video producer and a content
Ah,
producer.
I
And
see.
I'd started that business with a colleague of mine from the company that we both come from, and and I'm not sure we were in it 9 months before she needed to get out, and we'd racked up quite a chunk of credit card debt on my name.
Oh,
And when she
yikes.
got out, she, after having promised that she'd cover her share of it, when she actually went to leave, I actually had to buy her out. I mean,
Oof.
it was $1,000,
Gosh.
so it wasn't much, but I was left with 70,000
Right.
in debt,
Right.
and it's personal debt in my name, and and so all of a sudden I realized that I madly had to learn to market. Oh, other big mistake in that company: we built the video training programs before we'd ever tested marketing.
There we go. So
Yeah.
it all
Well,
comes back to that.
there's that myth that if you build it, they will come. If you have a great product, people will hunt you down. That is the biggest lie in business ever. There are brilliant products that go out of business every day. And there's absolute crap products that are making bazillions and are on, the stock exchange. So,
Right.
right? So
Yeah, for
the
sure.
reality is if you can't get through the noise and get your message out, nobody's going to
Hmm.
know you exist. Like we have
Gosh.
some
Yeah.
extremely loyal customers, but we are a tiny fraction of the market.
Right.
Tiny
Yeah.
fraction of the market right now. And there's definitely companies that we're up against who have venture capital behind them,
Right.
and they will undoubtedly, at least touch a much bigger chunk of the market than we can anytime soon.
Hmm.
And yet, we're doing good marketing that will, when those products don't work for our women, they will
Absolutely.
they will start responding to our ads.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
But yeah, so
Amazing.
anyway, Teacher's Toolbox. Interestingly, that was the business that drove me into my very first bankruptcy and hopefully the only bankruptcy ever.
Yeah.
But I can say for U.S. law, and especially for businesses, I think this is one of the reasons the U.S. has a very high entrepreneurial spirit is because there is a
Mm.
way to dig yourself out if you blow it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, you can't do it very often. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like
You don't want to abuse that,
it's
right?
not a free pass. But I do
Yeah.
have to say that countries that have more rigid bankruptcy proceedings, it's much harder to feel like you can take the gamble on a business, because some businesses you can do everything right and they still won't work, you know.
Right, of course. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and yet that business, I only just shut it down this year. So,
Wow. Amazing.
or
Wow, so you managed to pull it
last
out
year's,
and keep
yeah,
it going.
sorry. Yeah, it was,
Right.
yeah, so it's 20 years it made it. I know I wasn't actively marketing it for a lot of it. I had some very
Mm-hmm.
loyal school districts and stuff that just continued to buy
Yeah.
and buy and buy. But I only just closed that down last year. So in the end, it ended up being more profit than loss, but not by
Yeah.
a, not by a
Yeah,
lot.
fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No.
But yeah, I've after after and at the same time as Teacher's Toolbox, I had a business called Smart Tools. I was a course leader for PAX, which was almost like having a franchise. Like I was trained under, it was a relationship course that I was trained to teach and lead, but I pretty much had to drive my own traffic for
Hmm.
students and participants and doing intros and things like that. And
Right.
and then I had a little jewelry business, Cabrica, because I have a lot of hobbies, but one of them was making
Yeah.
jewelry at the time. And Leland Investment, I dabbled in real estate investing, which turns out I absolutely hated every aspect of it, but I
Right.
refused to quit until I got good at it. So I got very good. And then I quit. Then I
Ah,
sold everything and left it.
nice.
Launched a business, Good Life Guide. Uh, that was for relationship stuff for men, actually, with my working with my husband. Care Detective with
Ah,
Care Detective, but I've also helped with a startup called Zuma Juice that was had its own problems. But each one of these, so the most successful ones was Smart Tools, Leland Investment, actually, even though I hated it, and Parlor Games.
yeah.
You know, and
Interesting. Yeah.
there was limited
Fascinating.
success with some of the others.
Hmm.
Uh, Actually, both PAX was working well, but because it was a franchise, like it was hard for me to
Right.
recover my money if I was
Hmm.
doing the advertising. That it just the the way the finances worked just didn't lend itself well
Gosh.
to
Yeah.
the
Fair enough.
endeavor. My jewelry business
Yeah.
did great, but I decided I didn't want to be out there selling jewelry. I like
Right.
making it,
Yeah.
didn't really want to sell it.
Perhaps,
Um,
but you may didn't feel like there was a mission like similar to what you have with parlor
no,
games. It was just, yeah, you just didn't have
yeah,
that sort of connection, I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
Makes sense.
And Good Life Guide, we were testing and launching at a time where we were kind of running out of cash. So
Mm,
we didn't have the runway we needed to really see if that could take off.
got it.
And so
Yeah.
that one just got shelved, you know.
Right.
And sometimes that
Fair
happens.
enough.
And that
Yeah.
is the life of an entrepreneur. If you
I can
need a
imagine.
steady
Yeah.
paycheck, in fact, I think that's probably one of the biggest things to me, you know, there's so much about being an entrepreneur and a business owner that you can learn. Tons you can learn. Many people learn. I think the one part
Right.
that maybe you just need to be wired for is you need a solid stomach. You need to be able to sleep at night
Mm,
if you're hemorrhaging 100,000 a month. Which we
right.
did. That's how I know.
Yeah. Gosh.
Uh,
Goodness gracious.
we,
Yeah.
you need to be able to sleep at night when you're not sure when you'll be able to draw a paycheck.
Right.
And my first business, that's really was the biggest difference between me and my business partner. She stopped sleeping early on, and I was like,
Mm,
we can only do what we can do, and I kept sleeping, right?
incredible.
And
Well,
kept
yeah.
working, and I think that's, to me, from lots and lots of conversations I've had, even with very smart people who probably have the skill set to run a business, they haven't had the stomach for it. And and actually those are wonderful people to hire. Those are my favorite people to hire, who really have kind of that entrepreneurial drive, that fascination and that interest in growing something and really being a part of something big, but want a steady paycheck and don't want the risk. Those are
Right.
amazing humans
Yeah.
to
There's
hire.
a place for everyone, right? I
Oh,
mean, I think
absolutely.
there's a yeah, there's like this big, you know, propensity, I think, especially around social media, that everyone has to, it seems to be trending. Maybe it's just me, but it seems to be a big trend of a lot of people starting businesses. And I think it's important to remember that that's not for everyone and it shouldn't be for everyone. And everyone has their own sort of place, and there's no reason why anyone should be ashamed or proud, or it's just,
Oh,
what we prefer, I
100%.
suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah, I
incredible.
mean, it is
Yeah.
interesting because, I, I do have a strong opinion that you don't want to run a business with all entrepreneurs as employees. They just don't stick around.
Yeah, I can
I mean,
imagine.
I was
Yeah.
one of those. Even before I
Yeah,
was
so
an
you,
entrepreneur, I was a
yeah.
pain in the butt with the company I worked with because I was like, well, you
Right.
could do it better this way. Well, why don't you sell the company to me? You know, I
Amazing.
mean, I was a
Yeah.
total pain. And my
Yeah.
husband's the same way. I mean, we laughed that we're practically unemployable because, you know, we want to drive the
Hmm.
ship.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
and um and so you need the people. You need people who can just be craftspeople, who can be the artisans, who can be the brilliant copywriters, and the way they sleep is knowing they get paid every week or month or whatever, That's
Right.
fabulous. Um, but
Amazing.
yeah, the entrepreneurs can bring great ideas and be brilliant helps and tend to be more often more jacks of all trade, which can be helpful, especially to a startup. But at
Yeah.
some point, they're going to decide they can make more money on their own,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Of course. Always
which
gotta.
is
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
we do have someone on our staff right now who has a very entrepreneurial drive, and I'm even
Right.
mentoring him on his own business. But we knew
Right.
that when we hired him. We knew that this
Mm,
could be
interesting.
temporary, and and um, he's a young guy, and it's fun to get to mentor people and share what you've learned, And so
Yeah.
I'm getting a kick out of that. Kate's enjoying that too. And yet there's part of us that hopes he stays forever because he's fabulous help, in the position he's in,
Exactly.
which he's
Yeah.
our head of shipping and fulfillment. So, he's doing
Hmm.
a fabulous job. But
Yeah.
but we could lose him. And I'm
Yeah.
cheering for him.
Of
So
course.
like I hope he wins.
Yeah.
Little part of me that
What
hopes
a
he stays forever, but I
such an
hope he
interesting
wins.
balance. Yeah, gosh, because yeah, a lot of founders struggle with this. It's like, oh, should we bring on, more entrepreneurial people? They tend to take more ownership, but at the same time, they don't stick around, and they want to kind of control things. And it's always very interesting to see how different startups or companies actually manage that. Especially because in the beginning, it's not like you can't always afford to bring on someone full time at straight away, right? So sometimes you have to bring
No.
on more entrepreneurial people, but obviously that
Yeah.
has its own drawbacks too as well.
Well,
So
and
very
as a
interesting how
startup, you
you
really
balance that.
can't
Yeah,
afford specialists except by contract, because then you can be
yeah,
like, I need 3 hours of a graphic designer, and I need,
yeah.
you know,
Exactly.
I need 2 hours of an
Yeah.
executive assistant or whatever.
Hmm.
But we're starting to get to the place in parlor games where we can start to afford specialists,
All right.
which is
Yeah.
really great because like especially I'm primarily responsible for making sure we have new customers, right?
Yeah.
I'm in
Exactly. It's
charge of
a big
marketing.
burden.
That's my side of
Yeah.
the world. And
Hmm.
to be able to start having people whose sole focus is copywriting, to have your team who's focusing on the actually video editing and finding all the stories and the footage, like, to be able to start to knit together a really um, high performing team is really exciting. It's
Fun, isn't it?
bumpy,
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah.
it's still bumpy. We've got some gaps to plug, but this part is really kind of a thrill. I mean, we're not quite fully into that realm of being able to afford, specialists,
Yeah.
but we're getting there, and it's fun
Yeah.
to see how that comes together as well.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. What a journey it's been, right? Um, honestly, yeah. Just hearing you, yeah, say all that, it does make you kind of realize, that obviously you would like certain things to be perfect all at the same time, but bit by bit, piece by piece, it comes together and it eventually works out.
Yeah.
So I guess, taking a look, we've just talked a lot about, how, Parlor Games, the hiring and the team culture and everything, and, shipping, fulfillment. Obviously, it's been plenty of journeys of highs and lows, but if perhaps you were to maybe go back to the beginning, and do one thing differently, is there anything that you might have changed, from the beginning, or are you pretty happy with the way things have been? Obviously, it's on the outside it looks like a great success, but is there any one thing that you would have perhaps changed?
Well, the funniest part when Kate and I talked, I mean, again, we were very lucky when we
Right.
started that, you know, our ad costs were higher than we thought they were going to be, but we were getting customers and they were having
Right.
good results. So these are, I mean, that was extraordinary. when we look back, we're like, oh my gosh, we should have doubled down on ad spend. We should have spent way more
Yeah.
because our ad costs only just got more and more expensive. And we were feeling like, oh,
Right.
our cost per acquisition when we were testing was, around $6 to $8. When we launched,
Yeah.
it was around 8 to 10 and was climbing to 12. And I'm freaking out at 12.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, it's way past that now. And in hindsight, it's like, we should have
Yeah.
spent everything. We should have borrowed more money from each of our,
Yeah.
resources and
Should have raised venture capital. Should have done the whole shebang.
quadrupled them. Nah,
Yeah.
no, Kate and I
Yeah.
are too opinionated, too old to take venture capital at this point.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
Also,
Yeah, that makes sense.
this is
Yeah.
a business of passion. I don't want to be pressured to making decisions that are
Of
purely
course.
for the bottom line and to pay out investors. I want to
Yeah.
be able to make decisions that serve our women. I mean, Kate and I are adamant about that. We'll borrow from ourselves. We'll,
Figure
maybe
something out.
perhaps, lean on some friends and families if we really have, a big,
The three F's, right? Yeah.
yeah, we don't have any intention of building something that can go public. We don't have any intention of building something
Right.
for the sake of selling.
Hmm.
Our vision hopefully is to find strong women leadership who would want to take over from us. None of our kids seem to be on that list because of
Right.
lack of desire
Got it.
and interest.
Back to
But,
the drawing board on that one then, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, our hope is that we can build something that can live on. And
Right.
and again, our first goal is to really make a difference. That's what gets us up in the morning. It's the testimonials we get that are like, oh, hearing that makes it worthwhile to solve this stupid
Yeah.
bottle problem yet again.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah.
but yeah, I think that was probably the biggest thing. Yeah, we would have spent more money
Yeah.
and bought up all the original bottles.
If only
we had
you
been
knew the
prescient,
journey to
prescient,
come. Yeah.
prescient, is that the word? Anyway, if we could see the future,
Yeah.
we would have bought up every bloody last bottle
Yeah.
that was produced at this factory in Germany before they stopped making it. And it doesn't look
Right.
like it's ever coming back. It was the
sure.
best bottle we've had. We've not been able to replace it, and all the alternatives have had one problem or another. So we would have bought them all up.
Yeah.
But-
Well, hindsight is obviously 2020, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
sure.
Obviously, yeah. Yeah, we can wish all these things, but yeah, just hearing what you've said so far, it's really hard when you're juggling all these different things to know, like, let alone, deal with tomorrow, think about, 3-6 months down the line, right? So I think, yeah, given all that said, yeah,
Well,
done
I
pretty
guess
well.
I guess I would add to that. I would have tested some of the videos we made to cold audiences way earlier than I did. I mean, I would have that's what we're in the rhythm of doing now is
Yeah.
we're testing and testing on cold audience. And then if it doesn't really work there, well, maybe it will work for people who've already interacted with our brand. But I mean, we could have, I had that video edited of Kate that has been running for 13 months now. I had that one edited in January or February of that year, and it had just been plugging along on really low ad spend in our middle of funnel.
Right.
And I didn't notice that it was making sales in an area
Yeah.
that it really shouldn't have been until like October, I think October of that same year. And so it wasn't when I was frantically watching our ad spend rise that I started digging through every last aspect of our ad campaign and found, to my astonishment, that this sciencey educational video was actually converting on click traffic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy because sometimes even as trained marketers, you take a look at stuff and you think to yourself, you think, oh, I've got years and years of experience. Like, there's absolutely no way that this will ever work, or this would never work. This will
Right.
work, and you take a look at the data, and you just think, damn, that is. And sometimes it's the ones that you spent ages on, and they completely flop, and vice versa. Sometimes I think there was a meme that was going around where it's like something taken out of SpongeBob, and SpongeBob was like crafting really hard to work on some sort of ad, and then it completely flops. And the one that does really well is just the one where he just they just chucked a spaghetti at the wall and just found something random. And sometimes our own sort of biases and preconceptions can really sort of misguide us almost. I
Yeah.
guess we've just got to remember, oh wait, yeah,
Well, I'll
the
just
data
never
does the
forget your
talking.
comment when
Yeah.
you watch that video for the first time.
Yeah.
You're saying this should never have worked.
Yeah, I was like, when I
I
was like, are you sure
can't.
this is the
I
winning
need to
ad?
see your dad.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
But I mean, that was my own thought too. This will never work. I
yeah,
mean, it's a great education. This will never work as an ad, and just put it on the shelf and didn't really think about it. But I have to say, there is nothing more humbling as a marketer than seeing the stuff that you're positive will work just absolutely tank, and the stuff that you thought was total garbage perform.
right.
And I
Yeah,
think,
exactly.
the biggest takeaway of all my marketing experiences, you have to always be testing. Always be testing.
Never
Test the
stops.
thing you think will never work. Test the things that you're positive will. Test it and test it as cheaply as possible.
Yep, and effectively, yeah. I think that's definitely one thing I've taken away from working with you. Yeah, some very, very cool frameworks for testing on that
Yeah.
regard. So yeah, it's definitely served you really well for sure. So yeah, that's incredible. So I think I don't want to take up too much time. So what I thought I'd do is wrap up a little bit here. We've covered a lot of ground. I'm going to move on to just a quick couple rapid fire
Sure.
questions. You can try and answer in a sentence or two. So without
Ooh,
further ado, first one. Yeah, doesn't always come out that way, but
let's
just
see.
nuggets, I guess.
Not be
Um,
long-winded. That might be a challenge. Okay, shoot.
yeah, we could try. Yeah. So obviously, already talked about most important traits for entrepreneurs in general. Any specific advice that you would give to e-commerce founders looking to start in a post, iOS 14, 2021 world?
Um, well, first of all, test before you invest in the business. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yep,
don't build the
of course.
product first.
Yeah, I think
Start
we've
with your marketing testing.
talked about that.
Make
Yep.
sure that you've got a path. You will,
Hmm.
that will help you sleep at night.
Yep.
But I would also say that the phrase cash is king is always true. One of the things Kate and I were able to do is to negotiate for really good terms with our manufacturer. And so
Right.
even when they bill us, we then put it on a credit card to buy us another, 21 to
Smart.
28 days. So we have an almost 60-day runway from the time that we get the product to when we're actually paying the price for it. And those kinds of terms with your vendors can make a world of difference when you're getting off the ground. Because if you're having to prepay for things or even pay right on, on receipt or on shipment, um, that makes it very difficult to make your numbers work out of the gate.
Yep.
And
Can
you can
imagine.
lose a lot of money at that stage. And the beauty was, we our original investment, I think, was only about 20,000 between us, and we were
Hmm.
able to just use those. Here's the total lack of 1.5 sentences. Use those vendor agreements to help prop up
Right.
the business, so that we weren't going in debt to to see if this would get off the ground. Right?
Mm.
We could sell
Profit
those
first.
bottles before
Yeah.
we had to pay for them.
Amazing.
And so I think
Fantastic.
that's really critical for a new e-com biz. Yeah.
Got it. And any sort of productivity hack that's kind of served you well? Any tools, any practices, any, piece of advice that's served you really well day to day?
I am a time management monster.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's really clear to me how easy, especially online. If you're online, that means you may be in Facebook multiple times a day. If you're
Gosh, yeah. For an
online
advertiser,
and an
crikey.
advertiser, like,
Yep.
one
It's
of the
hard, yeah.
biggest time hacks for me is setting up my structures so that I don't go down rabbit holes. I do not have
Mm.
Facebook's app on the front page of my phone, or
Yep.
Instagram, or any of them. So if they're not there, I don't think to look at them. If I
Right.
I don't keep Facebook open, I only keep Ads Manager open. But even then, I try to be really regimented. I look at my data from yesterday in the morning, and I don't look at it again most
Yeah.
days.
Newsfeed
Except when we're
Eradicator definitely
testing, I
helps
do
with
that.
that.
I don't check
Yeah.
my email except for like
Mm.
once or twice a day. I'm really clear on how people can reach me, and I work really hard to block off creative time,
Right.
because if you're just trying to fit it in between a bunch of other tasks, like, it will never happen. And I think that's the
For
hardest thing.
sure.
So
Yeah.
I try to really work in blocks. And my favorite tool at the moment is ClickUp, but there's many tools. A tool
Yeah,
is a
for
tool. It's
sure.
what you can make it
It's
do
just a
for you.
tool. Yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah.
if paper and pens, what works for you, great. Never worked for me because the stuff that didn't get done, I had to rewrite, and I just don't like
Yep.
that. And sometimes there's a
Yep.
day where things just blow up, and it's like, okay, those three tasks that I was going to get done today, we're moving those tomorrow because
Drag it across. Yeah.
there's just no hope. The day's
Hmm.
gone sideways, you know.
Precisely.
But yeah, time
Amazing.
management I think is really critical, especially for smart startup, because you're undoubtedly juggling 42 things at any given time.
Precisely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And any sort of other business ideas that you would pursue if you had the time or the bandwidth slash money?
I'm on my non-working hours have been spent going down climate solution holes, you know, rabbit holes. And
Mm.
so if if I build another business, which in some respects I kind of hope not to,
Yeah.
like I'm 52.
Says every
I like to
founder ever
just
until they
actually,
go in
I
debt.
actually, my favorite stage of business
Yeah.
is really what I call refining and tuning. It's
Yeah.
it's after you've cleared that initial startup phase that you're
Hmm.
really fine tuning it. That's like
Yeah.
my favorite stage. We're
Yeah.
not quite there, but we're getting there with
Yeah.
parlor games.
Yeah. Why would you
And
then go back and do that whole walk through hell again? Just
yeah, I mean,
for the sake
there's
of it.
part
But
of, I mean, the startup phase can be so energizing and just fill
for
your
sure.
brain, but it's also, that's the stage where things die fast or can crash
Yeah.
suddenly or just don't get off the ground. And so it's also it's exciting, but it comes with a lot of stress.
Right.
And while I'm pretty good at it and effective at it, it's not my favorite business stage. And I
Right.
think most serial entrepreneurs are serial entrepreneurs because they either love that phase and then pass it off once it's there, or
Yeah.
they're just trying to get that next business that will really take. That's more my thing.
Mm.
I don't start them up because I love to start them up. I start them up
Yeah.
because something went awry with the last one, or it's time to move on,
Hmm.
or whatever, and now I need the next idea. And I'm so
Right.
much happier as an entrepreneur than I am as an employee or as a contractor. I've done
Right.
some of that, very little in the
Yeah.
last 21 years, but some of it.
Got
Yeah.
it. Amazing. And what is your favorite book or movie or radio station podcast even of all time, or the one that sticks out to you? I know it's a big broad one, so if you want we can limit it to whatever you
Yeah,
listen
it's
or
funny.
read the most.
Books, especially. I'm a voracious reader of books, and I love a lot of genres. And so I don't even think I could come up with one. That's my favorite. It's like, what's my latest favorite? And in combination with my climate rabbit hole, Ministry for the Future
Hmm.
was really good. It's fiction,
Right.
but it's a very science-based fiction. So it's a kind of science
uh,
fiction novel. They have a
so I guess
genre for
it's
that. And my favorite, I have lots
yeah.
of favorite podcasts though, because I listen to a
uh,
lot of podcasts. And
yeah.
but for business, How I Built This with Guy Raz is one of my all-time favorites. And it's not because I get like tactical information or strategic information,
Hmm.
but it does remind me to think from that 5,000-foot view and also get inspired by just the humans that build so many amazing things.
Sure.
It's a very
Yeah.
inspirational program for me. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that
Even
I
if they're in
think is
different industries.
that even though there's some good strategic and tactical kinds of business podcasts, I kind of listen to them in spurts and fits. But
Yeah.
How I Built This, that's my running podcast. When I go running, that's what I listen to.
I see. Yeah. Always when you're doing something else, that's like the perfect time, right? Because you
Yeah,
just get to have that in the background whilst you get on with something else. Ultimate productivity hack there as well.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess then the final question for me is, where can listeners or watchers of this find you online?
Well, our website is Parlor, spelled the American way,
Yep.
Parlor, parlor-games.com. And very briefly, some people wonder why the heck we named a menopausal company Parlor Games.
That's a good point,
Um,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, when Kate and I were trying to come up with names, which is always a hard business, but the thing that struck me was, you know, a parlor was where I envisioned the revolutionary women gathering. the suffragettes, the rabble rousers,
Of
the women that
course,
are trying
yeah.
to shake up the world.
Yeah.
And for us, I think that defines us pretty well. Out to shake up the world, and games. That's kind of a life approach I take. Because it can take some of the stress and significance off a big challenge if you approach it like a game.
Right.
Okay, so we're playing the game for helping menopausal women right now, and we're gonna have
Right.
wins and losses, but it's not about whether I'm personally a failure or a success. It's like, am I playing this game well? It's it's a little random, I realize, but for us, parlor games really resonated for both of us.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it has that humor aspect as well, and it has
yeah,
that
yeah,
sort of
we're
community feel, and I think that actually
we're
worked really,
gathering a
really
bunch
well.
of
Yeah,
women and we're having fun
yeah,
in the parlor.
yeah, exactly. And it's great because it's almost like an in joke, almost, or like something, if you know,
It's
within the
been a
community, and I guess
super
that,
in joke,
yeah,
but mostly between me and Kate, and we're
yeah, I
trying to figure
suppose,
out how
yeah,
better to share the joke. But
educate, yeah,
but yeah, so it's
yeah,
parlor-games.com, and actually, as I mentioned, there's only 5 full-time people, so even if you send an email from our contact us page, it will get to me if you address it to me.
amazing.
It's very easy.
Fantastic. Yep. So yeah, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Kirsty.
this is fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, some incredible nuggets of wisdom, and yeah, had a great time recording this. Thanks so much for all your wisdom, all your ideas, and yeah, I honestly just can't wait to see Parlor Games grow even further, to be honest.
Oh, well, thank you. You and me both. This has been great fun. I appreciate it also.
So that wraps up this episode of the Against the Current podcast, where I aim to talk to various business owners and talk to them not just about what they've built and how they've built it, but also about various strategies that they undertook that were a little bit different to conventional wisdom. I hope you found that as valuable as I did. And if you want to learn more about Parlor Games, I'll leave their website link down below in the description. And if you want to learn about how I'm helping e-commerce brands like Parlor Games grow further, you can find the link to my website and my email in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon.